What's going on, everybody? So today I decided to do a updated favorite films list because the last one I made, I believe I made it about a year ago during the summer, and it was a top 25, so that was like an hour long. You know, I don't regret making that, but that was a really strenuous list, and I think a lot of people that watched that video definitely enjoyed it, and I actually got quite a bit of subs from that video, surprisingly. I didn't really expect that, but I've been getting a lot of comments lately that have been asking me to do, you know, a more updated list, and I think that's really warranted because, you know, since then I have actually seen a lot more films that I have just absolutely loved, and I honestly I've either haven't talked about at all or I haven't talked about them enough. So I'm actually really excited to bring you guys this video because, again, there's a nice handful of films in here that I've just been dying to talk about, but there's also a nice handful of films on this list that I have already talked about before and were definitely on my previous list as well. So I'm sorry if that is a little tiresome and boring for you guys, but there are just some films that I just think will always be my favorite. So, yeah, that being said, I won't hold you any longer. I'm just going to dive right into it. So let's go ahead and start this list at number 12, which is Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, which is written and directed by Wes Anderson and has just a monster cast, as basically every Wes Anderson film does. You got Bill Murray, you got Cate Blanchett, you got Owen Wilson, you got Willem Dafoe, and probably a bunch of others, Jeff Goldblum as well. So yeah, obviously it has a stellar cast, and this is still my favorite Wes Anderson film. I believe I talked about this in my top 25 favorite films. I don't remember at all, but this is definitely, at least in my opinion, Wes Anderson's most emotionally captivating film. There, in the third act, it just goes somewhere with it that I just really did not expect me to emotionally grab me in the way that it did, and I just love it for that. But you know, The Life Aquatic has basically everything that you would love out of a Wes Anderson film. It's got his style with the cinematography, the use of score, the way that he writes the clever, witty dialogue between the characters, and just the way he writes the characters in general. But one thing that I just absolutely love about this film is that I just think it has such a strong and pretty relatable main character, which is Bill Murray, and I just absolutely love the way that the film concludes his own thematic conveyance, because there's just this huge scene in the third act involving the jaguar shark, and that was, in my opinion, the most beautiful moment in all of Wes Anderson films. Of course, that's subjective, but just for me personally, that moment I just thought was emotionally genius. Like, I just thought it was just it really hit me hard. And yeah, so that being said, I absolutely love this film, and this is one of the Wes Anderson films that you've been kind of laying off because of the mixed reviews. I highly suggest just going into this with your own perception and seeing how you feel about it. So yeah, that's why it's number 12 on my list.
Yesterday was eaten. He was swallowed whole. No, chewed.
So at number 11, we have Dogtooth, which is written and directed by Yorgos Lanthimos. So this is a film that absolutely just mind-fucked me. And it's not because it was just so insanely confusing, just because of how much disturbing content that is in here, which sometimes it's not like the most graphic film or anything. I mean, I think there is one graphic moment in particular that doesn't involve sex. I guess that's a warning, a lot of sex in this movie, by the way. But what I'm saying is that it's not disturbing because of any kind of visual gore or anything. It's just disturbing because of the kind of context that this film presents. And I believe the film that I had before, that was my favorite from Yorgos Lanthimos, was The Lobster. I've been thinking more about Dogtooth lately, and it's just what it presents and what it has to say about fascism and how easily the mind can be corrupted. It's just so powerful. And yeah, it's disturbing because of the context that he puts the main characters in to convey all of these themes that I just said about just what can happen to the human mind when you have the powerful figures that are overseeing you just completely brainwashing you and corrupting your mind to believe certain things when they're clearly not that way. And the whole time you can't help but feel the pain and agony and just the oppression that these characters are feeling, especially from the main character that we follow throughout this film. And but you know, that being said, I absolutely love this film and everything, but this is one that I can't sit here and just recommend it to everybody. I would seriously only recommend this film to true film lovers or just really treacherous casual moviegoers. But overall, like I would really only recommend this to film lovers, because this just goes to places that, it has content in it that I don't think a lot of people can handle. And also on top of that, it's got, again, a lot of graphic sexual material in this, and obviously none of it is flattering at all. So yeah, that being said, I think that this is an insanely thought-provoking film and a very well-directed film. It's also really well shot too. Most of it takes place like in a normal-looking house, but it still looks very well shot, and the acting in this is just incredible. I don't know any of these Greek actors. I'm not familiar with them, but they all just knocked it out of the park. They were very believable in their roles, and yeah, I absolutely love this film, and that's why it's number 11 on my list. So at number 10 on my list, we have The Hunt, which is written and directed by Thomas Vinterberg. And this is a film that I've been dying to talk about with you guys, because I believe I saw it about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I was just absolutely blown away about this film. I mean, from beginning to end, this film was so incredibly engaging, just incredibly upsetting, and on top of that, just incredibly sombersome, because you just can't help but just feel every ounce of pain that the main character feels throughout this entire film. And, huge praise to the writing and directing, because I think that this film is written to perfection and essentially directed to perfection. And since it's directed to perfection, that means that the acting is also just off the charts, really well done, really believable acting in this film. The main character, I believe, is played by somebody named Mads Mikkelsen. Sorry if I butchered the hell out of that, but he gives an excellent performance in this film. And yeah, like I said, just the absolute agony that you feel for this guy the entire film is just so... It's just like the whole film, you feel like it's just weighing down on you, it's compressing you into this ball of just sadness. And, I couldn't ask for anything more than that. But what I love so much about this film is that it takes an incredibly controversial subject about, people being accused of pedophilia, people being accused of sexual assault, and just what that can do to somebody's life. And it's a really brave film to touch on this subject that isn't just, championing people that are actually accusing people of sexual assault. Because, in America, we do have this huge Me Too movement, which I do support, to a certain degree. Obviously, I think it's really important for people who have been abused, to come out and explain exactly what happened, because that's just, obviously everybody's voice needs to be heard. But this film tackles this subject in a way that forces you to realize that, maybe we shouldn't just take everybody's word at face value, and sometimes some things that, you never think that a child would maybe lie about something, because, we always have this myth that children always tell the truth. There's no way children can lie. This film flips that on its head, and it just does such a beautiful job with it. And again, it's a really risky subject. This is a subject that if you don't write it right, if you don't direct it right, it can either come off as propaganda or just straight up inaccurate. And I just think this film conveyed, this controversial subject in a really nuanced way. And it's just, I can't commend him enough, the writer and director that is, to be able to display this, such an important subject in our society, in a way that is just so incredibly thought-provoking and nuanced that even people on both sides of the argument can watch it and be like, damn, well, shit, I mean, everything in this is it's fair and it's true. By the way, this filmmaker is Danish, so he's from Denmark. I don't know what kind of societal issues they have in Denmark, but this is definitely something that is relevant to American society as well. And I just thought it was just an enthralling experience. I mean, there's so many times in this movie, there's so many moments where you're just like, you can't even watch the screen because you're just so aggravated at what's happening. Like, there's so many times that I just want to throw shit at the screen and break it because of just the how people just so quickly assume the truth without even caring about any kind of investigation. And there's so many moments that you just, it's so cringy, but it's not cringe in a bad way. It's just cringy because everything's so well conveyed that you're just so angry at what's occurring on screen. And to be honest, guys, I think this film is pretty much perfect. There's nothing about this film that I would change. The third act and the way this film ends is masterful, but also just depressing at the same time, because it's such a harsh reality that it's conveying, that regardless, even if everybody has moved on from this accusation and people believe you, there's always that small group of people who are always going to look at you that way, no matter what. Even if the whole thing is squashed, you're still going to have those people that just look at you like a pedophile. And it just sucks how just bad word of mouth and dishonest word of mouth can totally ruin somebody's character and somebody's reputation. And I don't know, I absolutely love this film from start to finish. And there's honestly nothing about this film I would change. Honestly, guys, I think this film's a masterpiece. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. I would most definitely give this film a perfect 10 out of 10 because there is just nothing about this film that I would change, and it was just such an enthralling experience from start to finish. Even the metaphor that it conveys throughout the film, and especially the ending of him hunting an innocent animal in the woods, I love how that was utilized and how his character evolved from that from start to finish. And yeah, like I really want to talk my head off about this film, but I gotta move on. But I really love this film, and I highly recommend everybody to watch it. I don't care if you're a casual, I don't care if you're a film lover. Everybody needs to watch this film. I think it's just a really well-handled film, and I couldn't recommend it enough. And that's why it's number 10 on my list.
Are you running late? Did you sleep too much? All the awful dreams felt real enough.
At number 9, we have A Ghost Story, which is written and directed by David Lowery and stars Casey Affleck and Rooney Mara. So, if anybody's followed my channel for the past year, you guys would know that I've already talked my head off about A Ghost Story, but I'm going to do it again because I absolutely love this film, and it's probably going to stay in my personal favorites for a very long time. But, I mean, this film is just absolutely beautiful. I mean, this is one of the most beautifully depressing films I've ever seen in my life, but such an honest film at the same time, which is one of the reasons why I just love it so much. But really what I love so goddamn much about this film, aside from that, is that the direction of the cinematography and the score is pitch perfect. I mean, there's the way that the cinematography and the score and the story's context just mesh together throughout the film. It just creates such an emotionally tiresome film, but also just both truthful and captivating at the same time. This is one of those films that I don't even have to watch the film in order to cry. Like, I can either just put the score on and just cry to the score because I'm just recalling the film's events when I'm watching it. It's just so powerful. But also, I can just think about this film and just start crying a bit because it's just that powerful to me. And yes, it's an incredibly artsy-fartsy film. It takes a lot of artistic risks. There's a lot of very long takes that I don't think a casual moviegoer would be able to handle. But even then, I would recommend both casuals and film lovers to watch it because I think it's worth a shot. Even for film lovers, some of these really long takes can be tiresome, but I feel like they're all essentially purposeful for what they're trying to go for, and it only empowers the film's emotion even more because it all just feels so necessary for what the film's going for. And I just think with such a simplistic concept and such a simplistic plot that this film had, through its direction and the use of the score, it was able just to create something that was just so masterfully emotional. And again, really honest at the same time. And again, that's one of the reasons why it's one of my favorites and will most definitely remain to be one of my favorites for years to come, because it just did a lot with so little. And I love films that really shine with its direction, and it's just a visually breathtaking film on top of that. So yeah, Ghost Story number 9. I highly recommend it to anybody who hasn't seen it yet. Even for casuals, you know, be wary because, like I said, there are some long shots, but even then, I still think it's worth a shot. Even if you hate it, that's fine, but at least give it a shot. I think it's worth your time.
Why are we here? What's life all about? Is God really real? Or is there some doubt?
At number 8, we have Monty Python's Meaning of Life. So this is a film that I have just been absolutely dying to talk about with you guys because I haven't really talked about Monty Python films really at all on this channel. I think I maybe have mentioned it a few times, but just gonna tell you right out of the gate, Monty Python is probably my favorite comedy concoction, if you want to call it that. But I just love the humor that the Monty Python crew goes for because they can range from just being absolutely silly and stupid to just insanely genius and clever with its satire. And I feel like The Meaning of Life is one of the most genius satirical comedies that I've ever seen regarding life and philosophy and religion and science. And it's just an incredibly funny and satisfying watch from start to finish. I mean, I understand that most people's favorite Monty Python movie is The Holy Grail, which I completely understand. That movie's a fucking laugh riot. I mean, every second of that movie, I'm pretty much in tears. But I feel like The Meaning of Life just takes the comedy to a whole new level, and it's able to express so much genius satire within it. and it just comments so much about religion and philosophy and our place in the world. And I just love how it represents certain things and certain characters in life and certain religions that people follow. And I just love it. And just our overall conception and fear of death. And even beyond that, there's even some like government satire as well, like society stuff. And that's just really awesome to see as well. And it's all incredibly hilarious too. This film is fucking funny as shit. And you know, I wouldn't be praising it so much if it wasn't funny, but it's on top of it just being really clever and genius. I think it's absolutely hilarious. I mean, there's just so many scenes I could recall, but just one iconic one that I just can't get out of my head every time I watch this film is that sex education bit.
Name 2 ways of getting them flowing, Watson.
Rubbing the clitoris, sir?
What's wrong with a kiss, boy? Why not start her off with a nice kiss? You don't have to go leaping straight for the clitoris like a bullet again. Give her a kiss, boy.
I mean, that's just classic Monty Python shit, and it also has a lot to say about our school systems and how we teach stuff. And that's just one of the, I mean, every time I watch that scene, I am in tears. I just think it's absolutely hilarious. But this film just has so much to offer. I mean, again, apart from it just being really clever, it's hilarious. A lot of this film is absolutely hilarious. I mean, I'm not sure what the reception is on The Meaning of Life. From what I've heard, it's most people's least favorite of the 3 films, when you have Holy Grail, The Life of Brian, and The Meaning of Life. But to me, this is, in my opinion, the objective best Monty Python film, because it's able to balance just ridiculous, stupid comedy with incredibly genius satire. And on top of that, you know, this film also has really great aesthetic camera work to it as well, and even sound design and score. Yeah, especially the camera work. There are some bits in here where I'm like, wow, that was a really good tracking shot with that camera. That looks really good. And, you know, for a comedy, people don't really expect that kind of aesthetic work, but this film also works on that level as well. And yeah, this is just, and by the way, great music as well. There's a lot of hilarious satirical song bits in here that I absolutely love. I even have them on my playlist because they're so hilarious and catchy and truthful at the same time. And yeah, so Monty Python's Meaning of Life, that's my favorite of the Monty Python films. Every time I watch it, I'm absolutely blown away by its creativity and the genius satire that it provides. And that's why it's number 8 on my list. So at number 7, we have The Neon Demon, which is written and directed by Nicholas Winding Refn and stars Elle Fanning. So this one took me a long time to decide which one is my personal favorite Refn film. Because, especially with Too Old to Die Young that just came out, I'm kind of high off of that because I just absolutely love that series. But thinking long and hard about it, that's what she said, I absolutely love The Neon Demon, and it has to be my personal favorite. I watched The Neon Demon twice in the theater, and I'm so happy I did, because I feel like Refn films are just so much better experienced on a big screen with loudspeakers, because it really immerses you into that visionary aesthetic environment that I feel like you wouldn't really be able to get super immersed in if you're watching it like on a small ass TV. So The Neon Demon just has so much to offer in terms of theme, in terms of aesthetic beauty, because Jesus Christ, this is not a surprise for a Refn film. Calling a Refn film visually beautiful is like calling water wet. It just seems like an obvious thing to say, but it is beautiful in pretty much every aspect. The score by Cliff Martinez, definitely my favorite Refn score as well. I mean, the Neon Demon soundtrack, I can just play it in my car. Like, I just hear it. I know some people think that's weird to hear film scores, but I do that pretty often. If it's really good, I'll listen to it on the way to work or some shit. But yeah, I've listened to the Neon Demon score so many times. It's a brilliant score. And again, like thematically, this has a lot to offer. I've heard a lot of criticisms about this film saying that, oh, it's hollow, there's not much to read into, it's just way too on the nose. But in my opinion, it's not. The Neon Demon was actually the first film that I analyzed, and it's actually the first video on my channel, and it got great reception because I feel like a lot of people were able to appreciate a lot of the thematic material that I was able to discuss in that video. And I mean, this just has a lot to say about, you know, humanity's obsession with beauty and how we perceive it. And I just think there's a lot going on here, and I absolutely love The Neon Demon. It's definitely my favorite Refn film. And I don't know if that's going to change because there are some Revan films I haven't seen Valhalla Rising yet. I'm planning to see that sometime soon. I haven't seen the Pusher trilogy either. I'm going to get on that. I'm sorry, Revan fans. I'll get on that. But as of now, the Neon Demon is definitely my favorite, so that's why it's number 7 on my list. So at number 6 on this list, we have Cache, which is written and directed by Michael Haneke. So this is another film that I've also just been dying to talk about with you guys, because I haven't got to talk about it at all yet. And guys, it's my favorite Michael Haneke movie. I know I'm probably saying his name wrong, but this director is just super talented. What I love so much about Michael Haneke is that he is able to convey a lot of disturbing and thought-provoking stuff without doing too much and being showy with it. Like, there's a lot of disturbing shit that happens in his films that you don't visually see all the way, but it's just the way that it conveys off-screen violence and off-screen space with the use of audio is just, it's really captivating and also disturbing on top of that. And it's just, Cache, on top of it, utilizing that aesthetic approach, it also just has an incredibly powerful narrative to convey. The main character in this film is not a likable guy. I mean, I'll be straight up. He's honestly a piece of shit. But the way that this film is able to tell a story about this guy and how his past just, slowly gets unraveled and how this mystery starts to unfold, I just thought was really well paced and really well conveyed throughout the film. And, despite a film following somebody and having a main character that's basically a piece of garbage, it's able to really retain your attention and it's able to really keep you engaged throughout the entire film, which is really impressive. And on top of that, it has a really cool, ambiguous type ending. I mean, it's not super ambiguous or anything, but it's one of those endings where you can figure out what it's trying to convey, but you have to kind of look closely and pay attention to all the details of what's unfolding on screen. This is just a really impressive piece of filmmaking to me. And I've seen, a nice handful of his films. I think The Piano Teacher, Funny Games, and Cache. And Cache right now is my favorite out of all those three. I mean, and I love those two films. I love The Piano Teacher and I love Funny Games, but Cache is really an amazing piece of filmmaking. And I'm not sure how many people in my audience have heard of this film or know about it. But this is a really well-made film that has a lot to say, and that has a lot to say thematically as well. And if I were to rate this film, I don't think I would give it a perfect 10 out of 10, but I'd give it close to it. I'd probably give it a 9 or a 9.5 out of 10 because I don't really have much wrong with this film. There's maybe just tiny nitpicks kind of stuff, but overall, this is an incredibly solid film, and I highly recommend everybody who hasn't seen it or heard of it to go ahead and watch it. So at number 5, we have The Holy Mountain, which is written and directed by Alejandro Jodorowsky. And this film, I haven't talked about it. I think I have one scene analysis on this that I kind of go in depth with a certain scene. If you want to check that out, please go ahead. But besides that, I really haven't got a chance to really convey my general thoughts about this film. Anybody who follows my channel knows that I wear the shirt and I have the huge poster, but I haven't got to talk about it. So I'm really excited to talk about it right now. And the first thing I'll say is that this is the most visually stunning film that I think came out of the 70s. I mean, the kind of the visual achievement that this film is able to actually accomplish is quite staggering. I mean, it's almost unbelievable to think that I believe this was a 12 or 13 page script, maybe 14 page script that essentially got turned into a 2-hour film, which is compiled of just a huge visual narrative filled with an insane amount of religious imagery and philosophical imagery. And just, by the way, I guess I just go ahead and start out by saying this. It is an insanely batshit film. I mean, there is just so much outrageous shit that is conveyed in this film that you can't even believe that he was able to concoct this kind of imagery together, because it's just so I mean, there's 5 different scenes in this film where I'm just like, what? Why? What were you trying to say there? But most of the stuff here, I love it so goddamn much because it's it says so much about religion, humanity, and just life in general, philosophy. It says so many things in this film without really spoon feeding any of it through dialogue. Only maybe in the third act and near the ending, it gets a little dialogue heavy and telling you what it's trying to say. But beyond that, like, this film is essentially told visually throughout the entire film. And it's quite astonishing, especially for 1973, I believe, when this film came out. I could be wrong, but near there. But this is an incredible achievement in filmmaking. I can't recommend this to everybody, obviously. I mean, even film lovers would even have a hard time trying to get through this film, because I try to show one of my friends this film, and you know, he's not like an analytical film expert or anything. I would say that he's a casual film goer, but he's not like incredibly like dumb when it comes, like, he can watch The Witch, he can watch, you know, Hereditary and really love it. But I think that I may have pushed him a bit too far with The Holy Mountain, because basically the first 20 minutes of this film, he was just like, I don't understand anything that I'm watching right now, dude. Like, what is this shit? I have no idea what's going on. What am I supposed to get out of this? And I kind of had to like explain to him that, like, basically everything that you see in this film is a comment on either religion, it's a comment on humanity, it's making fun of something regarding those subjects, or it's trying to say something about these subjects every time you see some sort of imagery that you're like, what is this for? Basically every scene is saying something about humanity or religion. So once I got that into his brain, then from there on, he was able to really enjoy the rest of the film and kind of grasp what it was going for. And by the end of it, he enjoyed it. He's glad he watched it, but he told me that it was by far the most batshit crazy movie that he has ever seen in his life. And even for me, it is definitely, I want to say it's the most batshit, but it has to be maybe top 5 somewhere. But yeah, that being said, I think that if you're a true film lover, you should really try to give this film a chance. If you're a casual moviegoer, I don't know. If you want to, go ahead, but I don't know. And I don't think you may enjoy it. I don't know if you're there yet to watch this. Just to be, I'm not being mean, but I just don't know. It's really out there, and there's not much of a narrative for you to follow like that. But that being said, I really love this film. I think it's a huge achievement in filmmaking. And if I were to give it a grade, it would be definitely like a 9 or 9.5 out of 10, because it's just really, really well made.
Belong to me, it ease my mind. Imagine how the world could be so very fine, so happy together.
So at number 4, we have Adaptation, which is directed by Spike Jonze and written by Charlie Kaufman, and stars Nicolas Cage and Meryl Streep. I believe I talked about Adaptation before in maybe my previous favorite film videos. I don't remember. I think I talked about it somewhere. But Adaptation has just grown. I mean, I already loved it before, but it's just gotten so far high on my personal favorites list, because it's so emotionally powerful and incredibly memorable. Like, I can watch this film over and over again and just never get tired of it. And honestly, this film is obviously directed really well, but the writing in this film, I think, is its most strong point. The writing in this film, I just think, is so brilliant. It's just incredibly smart and clever. And on top of that, it just achieves a level of emotion that I didn't expect out of it. I mean, the third act always guarantees to have me in tears. And, you know, that's just thanks to the writing of this character. And also, Nick Cage gives a pretty damn good performance in this film, playing two people. He plays, he's basically twin brothers, so he plays two different brothers in this. And I just thought he did a really great job in this. He really knocked it out of the park. It also just does a great job at achieving this meta level of just self-awareness, but in a really natural and beautiful way, that it didn't feel like, it didn't really take me out of the film, even though I felt like it should have, but it just never did. And there is one line in this film that I just think is not only just really wise, but it's really emotional.
You are what you love, not what loves you. That's what I decided a long time ago.
I absolutely love that line in the film. I just think it's a really well written and really a very wise line for a lot of people in life, especially people who don't have a lot of confidence. It's a really empowering line that I just feel like a lot of people could really help from, including myself. And yeah, I just think this is an incredibly well written film. Obviously, really well directed by Spike Jonze. But yeah, this is just an incredible film. I absolutely love it. If you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend it. So at number 3, we have Dogville, which is written and directed by Lars von Trier and stars Nicole Kidman. So this is a film that I just would straight up just call a masterpiece. This is a film that really elevated this avant-garde style and just made it incredibly believable, because this film presents itself in an incredibly unorthodox way that I could see some people just calling lazy and pretentious, but I really think that this approach just enhanced the film to a whole other level, and it really makes you see, and it really forces you to see the point that Lars von Trier is trying to make, whether it's about humanity or capitalism or the exploitations of humans and their resources. And it really gets you to see the bigger picture. And of course, it's led by an astonishing performance from Nicole Kidman. And I believe Bill Skarsgård is also in this film, and he gives a great performance as well. But just, again, it's one of those films where like it hits a point where almost every scene is just so agonizing to watch sometimes, because you just want to break the screen because it's just pissing you off so much. The way that people are just treating this person, and how like they feel as if they're entitled to somebody, even though they were just fine a few minutes ago. And it just has a lot to say about how we are as a species. And yeah, it's not the most positive outlook on us, but I would say it's at least a pretty honest outlook. Yeah, sure, maybe it could have provided some sort of positive outlook, but at the same time, this is not what this film wanted to do. It definitely wanted to show an honest, dark side to humanity that people really don't want to address sometimes. And I just think this film achieved that beautifully. And yeah, this is by far my favorite Von Trier film. I love a lot of Von Trier's film, but this one, I just feel like it's a masterpiece, guys. I believe at the time when I reviewed this in my Von Trier video review, I gave it like a 9.75 out of 10. I guess I would stick with that. And I guess it's kind of weird to call it a masterpiece when there is a slight flaw with it. But I'm willing to like overlook that and just personally call it a masterpiece, because the only real issue I have is that it has some spoon-feedy expositional dialogue at times that is just conveying something about a character that we're already seeing and we didn't need to hear about it. But, other than that, it's a really tiny flaw, and I feel like the rest of this film works so damn well. So if you haven't seen Dogville yet, I highly recommend it. It's, in my opinion, one of the best films ever made, and I can't recommend it enough. So you guys might get a little upset at this top 2, because the top 2 hasn't changed at all, because I'm sorry, I love these films so goddamn much, and they're going to stay the same. So, for anybody who saw my previous video, you already know what they are, but if you haven't, stick around, maybe you'll still get some enjoyment out of it. So, that being said, let's go with number 2, which is... There Will Be Blood, which is written and directed by Paul Thomas Anderson and stars Daniel Day-Lewis and Paul Dano. There Will Be Blood is one of those films I just don't think is gonna ever shake my top 5. Like, There Will Be Blood is a perfect film. I can easily call this a perfect film. I mean, it exceeds on every single aspect of filmmaking. The score is emotionally captivating. The cinematography is perfect. I mean, every frame of this film has intention behind it. Paul Thomas Anderson is, in my opinion, one of the best contemporary directors we have. He is so meticulous about the way he writes and directs his films, and it's just a stunning film to look at on top of that. And the performances are just out of this world. Daniel Day-Lewis does what he always does and just completely blows everybody away with his incredibly believable performance and character. And Paul Dano too. I heard some people had some issues with Paul Dano's acting in this film. I don't see it. I thought he was excellent in this film, and just the dynamic between Paul and Daniel in this film is just so incredibly strong and so thematically conflicting that it's just so satisfying to watch unfold. I have a scene analysis on this, by the way. Honestly, it's probably, I think I respect that film analysis more than any of the ones that I've made, because it's just, I love the film so much. I was so excited to actually talk about the meanings of what I thought was going on in the film. So if you haven't checked that out, I would highly recommend it. I think you might enjoy it. But yeah, I mean, I've already talked my head off about this film on this channel, so I won't last too long, but I definitely think this is an incredibly perfect film. It's masterful in every single way. It has so much, it's a thematically rich film on top of that. It has a lot to say about capitalism and the human beings that just thrive in it. And yeah, this is just a stunning film in every phase. I absolutely love it. If you haven't seen it, what the hell are you doing? Watch it now. So at number 1, we still have Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange. I'm sorry guys, I don't think this is ever gonna leave my number 1. Maybe one day a film will somehow surpass that, but on top of this film just being incredibly perfect in every way, I have such a personal connection to it too, because I watched this when I was, I believe, like 16 or 17, and it just blew me away. Like, I have never seen a film just have such an impact on me, and just also had me thinking for so long about it, more than this film. And, on top of it just being thought-provoking and having a lot to say about, government control and how they're trying to police morality. It's also just an aesthetically breathtaking film. The score just has this, it really gives this film this odd atmosphere, but an incredibly immersive atmosphere on top of it. And the camera work just accompanies it so well. There's a reason why the beginning scene is incredibly iconic and everybody remembers it. It's because it's just directed to perfection. Stanley Kubrick knows what he's doing aesthetically, thematically. He knows what he's doing with every aspect of filmmaking. And I guess I never really came out and said this yet, but Stanley Kubrick is definitely my number 1 favorite filmmaker of all time at this point. I can't think of any filmmaker that really has achieved the level of filmmaking that this guy has, and that has also impacted me the way that his films have. And yeah, I already talked my head off about this film, so I'm not gonna linger on it for very long. But yeah, this film is just, on top of it just being thematically rich and aesthetically captivating, this film has some incredibly graphic shit in it as well. But it's not graphic in the way that it just shows blood and gore. It's graphic in the way that it presents a certain context. And that's something that I highly commend a film for doing, because a film can just try to be disturbing just by showing you disturbing shit, which this film does do that. Don't get me wrong, it does show some disturbing shit, but it doesn't go too far and show you things that it doesn't think are necessary to show you. And that's something that I highly commend it for, because every graphic piece of content that's in this, it's there for a thematic purpose. And I highly commend it for that. I highly respect this film for that. And I highly respect Stanley Kubrick as a filmmaker, because he's the kind of filmmaker that I would definitely strive to be. Just like all the films I've said on this list, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you watch it, because they all are just spectacular pieces of filmmaking. And I feel like, if you're a film lover, you won't be disappointed by them. So yeah, but I guess that's all I got to say, guys. Those are my top 12 personal favorite films currently. Next year is probably going to change. By the way, I intentionally did not include films of this year, because I did not want to spoil my best of 2019 list. So I definitely left those out for a reason. But besides that, this is definitely my current top 12 current favorite films. So yeah, if you really enjoyed what I had to say about these films, please give this video a like and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content.